The text of the Lojong has different lineage with the same root, which seems to be from Dharmarachita, also known as Serlingpa, who is also the author of some very important texts, such as the Wheel of Sharp Weapon. Later on, this text took a different direction, and the only difference is in the order of the lines, in difference of words eventually, and so on. But the main the core text, let's say, is exactly the same. Just a small difference. So as usual, what we can do is I will read the line itself, and we will go a little bit deeper into it. So maybe you have already the text and you can follow up the main lines. This is a very interesting text, as all texts are interesting, of course. But given the situation in many different countries, and given the situation worldwide, where we have a lot of fear of the others, a lot of hatred of the others, which tend to develop and to be sometimes increased by the media, increased by the politicians, who are trying to use the fear of the people for their own agenda. So we shall not fall into this kind of trap. We shall not fall into the attitude of suspicion and fear of other beings, the fear of strangers, and so on. So, of course, we need to be careful about a certain amount of things. We need to be aware. We need to remain grounded in the situation of the day-to-day life. Yet we need to keep a certain amount of things in mind in order to keep a certain serenity, in order to keep our minds firmly rooted in compassion, firmly rooted in bodhicitta. Yes, this is absolutely something we should not bypass, that we should not forget, that we should not minimize, is the importance of bodhicitta motivation. In all that we are doing, in front of whatever situation the life is bringing us, bodhicitta should be at the core of our thoughts, should be the ground on which we decide for our actions, for our activities, and for our practice. So when we would tend to lack a little bit motivation for the practice, when we could feel a little bit of fear or a little bit of anxiety due to the news, due to what is happening worldwide, we need to remember what is our core motivation, what we are aiming at, what is the direction we once decided to take, spiritually speaking, and consequently also in our whole everyday life. So bodhicitta is without any doubt the main line, the red line that we need to follow whatever we are confronted with. So the first line says, determined to accomplish all success, I shall always practice holding dear all sentient beings who are more precious than wish-fulfilling gems. So this brings us, of course, directly in connection with bodhicitta. It brings us also on what we are aiming at. And we, like all sentient beings, we are wishing to find happiness. We are trying to be happy, to be free from suffering. And in this, we are equal, all of us, all sentient beings. This is a common search, a common quest. But we are not doing it all in the same way. And it is clear when we are observing how a certain amount of beings are trying to find their happiness, it is not compatible with the happiness of the others. So their search for happiness is in contradiction with Dharma, is in contradiction with bodhicitta, with how we try to help and how we aim at helping also all other sentient beings. So we can say that there are two main attitudes regarding how we seek for happiness. One attitude is promoting self-cherishing, and the other attitude is promoting the cherishing of the others, helping the others. So we can see, without much work, without much difficulty, that those who are emphasizing on self-cherishing have very often occasions or reasons to be unhappy. They are unhappy because in their quest for happiness, self-cherishing themselves, they have a lot of expectations, they have a lot of needs, and consequently, they have a lot of unhappiness and a lot of suffering. So this is not the way. The way is without any doubt, from the Dharma point of view, to pay attention for the others, to turn ourselves in the direction of the others, respecting the others, caring for the others. This is the way. This is definitely how we can find happiness. Because while we are concerned more by the others, we also find our own happiness. The happiness of making the others happy is the greatest happiness. Yes. So, of course, according to the circumstance of daily life, we need to pay attention to our family, to our close one, maybe more than some others within the same society in which we live. So out of concerns and out of care regarding the daily life arrangement, of course, we will be more dedicated for some than for some others. But within our mind, within our motivation, we care for all sentient beings. So it is not a motivation and an attention which is turned to myself. I help these and these and these people because I want something for me. But it is really, I care, I have a genuine attitude of caring for all beings that I can, according to the possibility, according to my resources, to my abilities. But I would like, anyhow, to help all sentient beings, would it be possible. So this is the attitude. as I say, in the daily life and according to the circumstances, we will be more focused on some beings than some others. But our motivation is to care about all beings. The main concern of the bodhisattva, the main concern of the aspirant bodhisattva walking on or in the direction of the Mahayana path is not to care about how we will meet this type of pleasure or this type of happiness, but how we can provide for the others happiness and the correct understanding of how to unroot suffering. So that is why in that direction, in that progress, in that spiritual progress, the others are also extremely important, because it is the way we are confronted with the others that we can learn, that we can put into practice what we have learned from our teachers, from the teachings, from the different texts that we have read. If we refer, for example, to the Bodhisattva Karyavatara, the text from Arya Shantideva, we can learn a lot in terms of how to develop an attitude very concerned for the others, and how to apply in every moment of our daily life, by all the different possibilities, a kind attitude, a generous attitude, an attitude of bodhicitta. So this first this first sentence is enabling us to understand the importance of the others. Some people will show some positive attitude toward us, towards our close ones. Some will show some less good attitude because they might not understand, because of their ignorance, because of their disturbed mind, and so on. But in the same way that we are not getting mad at a kid doing a mistake because he needs to learn, because that mistake is out of his ignorance, out of his inability to understand something. So he needs to learn more further, and we will help him to learn better. In the same way, we generate that type of attitude towards all sentient beings. So it is in this way that we try to apply this first sentence. It requires, of course, the whole set of methods that we can use in order to do not let our disturbed emotion to overwhelm us, because, of course, as human beings, as sentient beings, when we are confronted with different situations, we can get angry, and out of this anger we can create a lot of negativities and a lot of suffering for the others. This is something that we do not wish, because we understand how it can affect and the others and our own karma, our own causality. So when we wish to hold all the other sentient beings as dear, because they are also searching for happiness, they might not always know how. Through my understanding of Dharma, through the kindness of my gurus, of my teachers, I have maybe understood a little bit better, a little bit differently, how to reach this happiness, and I want to share it. I want to enable the others also to follow the same path, the same way. And for that, I will work on my own anger. I will work on whatever disturbed me so that it does not overwhelm me. I know that some Western psychology would encourage to manifest our anger, to express our anger. However, it does not seem to be the wisest advice. At the same time, we try, of course, not to repress, not to suppress our anger, but to let it to explode or to manifest for the others, towards the others, is also not positive. It is very important to do the inner work, the inner analysis of why am I feeling this anger, why my mind is disturbed by this or that attitude. And I can apply the right antidote to this kind of disturbance in order to regain inner peace, without to suppress anger, without to let it explode, but simply by a proper and a correct analysis. So in any way, we can see that our practice depends very much also on the others. If they do not confront us with some unpleasant situation or some situation where we have a little bit of difficulty, how can we progress? How can we see the quality of the work that we have done already? How we improved within ourselves, if not by being in contact and by being challenged sometime by the others. So for our own practice, the others are masters, teachers, for the patience, for generosity, and so on. So when further I go onto the spiritual path and further I understand how I need absolutely to uphold all sentient beings without exception as very important and as those I wish to help, those towards whom my life is dedicated. Yes, so that's why this first sentence says, determined to accomplish all success, I shall always practice holding dear all sentient beings who are more precious than wish-fulfilling gems. Yes, a wish-fulfilling gem will grant all my wish, money and food and nice surrounding and so on, but will not be able to work on my mind. The only person who can work on my mind is myself. And we can be helped, of course, by the Dharma. We can be helped by perfect teachers, but we make the work on our own. And we make the work on our own with the help of all the sentient beings. So all sentient beings are more important than wish-fulfilling gems. That is the second line, the second verse says, wherever I go and whomever I accompany, I shall practice seeing myself as the lowest of all and sincerely hold others dear and supreme. Wherever I go and whomever I accompany, I shall practice seeing myself as the lowest of all and sincerely hold others dear and supreme. That is something quite difficult, especially, I would say, in the West, but probably everywhere. But we have a certain culture of supremacy, to being more important, to see ourselves stronger, better, richer, more powerful, and we are educationally encouraged into that. Because of this encouragement, because of this tendency of seeing oneself as more beautiful, as stronger, as wealthier, and so on, we are generating a lot of pride. And that is not good, definitely. So this verse is working on that, on pride, on big ego, and encourage us to develop humility, to become much more humble in everyday circumstances. When we are actually carrying even good work or charity work, it is important not to look ourselves as better than the others because we are doing good, because we are helping, because we are teaching, or because we are practicing this or that. That would be counterproductive, because an action which is not done with the purest motivation will, of course, also not bring the best result. So when we are practicing generosity, we need to practice generosity and humility. I give because I can, but not because I am superior to the others. I'm seeing all sentient beings as very important, as on the top of me. So when we say to see all sentient beings as higher than us, or we see ourselves lowest than all, it doesn't mean to underestimate ourselves. It doesn't mean to serve as a carpet for everybody. It simply refers to that type of humility, that type of attitude, not boosting one's own ego, which we find far too often, including in the Dharma, including among Dharma practitioners who might think that because they know Dharma, because they know about emptiness, because they know this and that, because they have learned a lot of text, because they know some prayer by heart and so on, that they are superior to other beings. But in the fact, we can see that a lot of people who are not in the Dharma, who are not a practitioner of any religion or specific philosophy, can, in many circumstances, generate a much better attitude, much more generous, much more open, much more sympathetic to everyone, and they are a very good example. So we should not take ourselves higher because we have made even the Dharma the most precious teaching, definitely, but not the reason to find ourselves or to feel ourselves higher than the others. As a matter of fact, even regarding other realms of rebirth, such as animals, we tend to see ourselves as much more, much higher, much more important, because we have a human rebirth, because we have a precious human rebirth, having found the Dharma and so on. But honestly, when we see a certain amount of attitudes, both of animals and of human beings, we can learn from the animals. We can learn from their honesty. We can learn from their generosity. We can learn from the way they function among each other, not killing each other for fun. When they do that, it is because of the nature of things that they need to eat, and they eat meat, so they kill another animals to eat, but not for fun, as human beings are doing. So we can say that in some aspects, some humans who have the great chance to have a human rebirth are not benefiting so much from it and are not getting the best out of it. So even towards the animal, we could have a certain form of humility and see how they are functioning, not to boost ourselves even with that. So again, when we say to seeing oneself as the lowest, it is not in terms of discouraging ourselves or lowering our self-confidence. Self-confidence and pride are not necessarily the same. You can be self-confident because you know that what you are doing is in your ability to be done. Without pride, because we always learn, because we can also always make mistakes. So you can feel very self-confident towards what you have learned, what you think you know quite well, and still remain humble, because somebody can still teach you a lot about what you are doing, about what you still don't know yet. So the others are extremely important for the practice and all different aspects of our practice. So we should always observe our mind and how our mind works regarding the others. To do not generate pride, which would damage my work, which would damage my practice. And instead, trying to be humble, not always to speak and have the last words and try to give the others the feeling that you are the best and so on. That is pointless from the Dharma point of view, definitely. The third line, the third verse says, "In all actions, I shall examine my mind, and the moment an unsubdued thought arises, endangering myself and others, I shall face and avert it." So, in all action, I shall examine my mind, and the moment an unsubdued thought arises, endangering myself and others, I shall face and avert it. That is regarding this necessity of being constantly aware of what is happening in my mind, what is happening in my thoughts, so that at no moment I get overwhelmed by any of them. You know, this is the snowball effect. If there is a little piece of snow starting to roll on the slope, it's easy to stop it when it is on a small size. But if we let it to take, to grow and to take speed, it is much more difficult to stop it at the end of the slope. Impossible. You might go with it and be completely taken away by it. Such is with our thoughts. We have a little irritation, but we don't pay attention to it, or even we might nourish it, support it, and that little irritation will transform into a big irritation, will transform into anger, and if we are not careful, sometimes it can lead us to hatred. So from a small thought, it can lead us to hatred. So how to avoid hatred? By recognizing the small irritation. And this is what is extremely important. Every day, there is not one day passing without the possibility to recognize that our mind is disturbed by this or by that, small things, big things, whatever. And when we are not aware of these type of thoughts, we are very quickly overwhelmed by a disturbing emotion. That is something to be avoided. So we need to recognize the rise of some thoughts. We can recognize, we can see them and say, this is, I'm irritated. I'm irritated by this, I'm irritated by that. This is absolutely not necessary to be irritated by this or by that. I am perceiving, after all, what I have created the causes for. Whatever I do perceive is empty of its own inherent existence, because it is on the basis of the causes I have accumulated myself. Thus, why to be disturbed by it? Why to let my mind generating disturbances facing a situation that I am the root of, that the causes I have created in the past are generating. So this is the antidote. This is an antidote. This is a way to think in order to avert, to oppose the rise of these disturbances or disturbing thoughts. So it is important, as soon as we recognize, we try to apply the proper antidote. If we see anger, we can meditate a little bit on bodhicitta. We can remember the verses of Lojong in order to pacify the mind, pacify the thoughts, not remain disturbed by whatever kind of emotions. So, anything else to say about this particular verse? It is many verse and one teaching. I think maybe the next time we should do this in 2 or 3 times, because there is a lot to say about it. Yes, just a little sentence which refers to the fact that when we have some emotion arising, if we are not careful, they act like wrong habits, which will come again and again. It's a little bit like when you have a mosquito bite. A mosquito bite, if you start to scratch, then it will itch even more. Or we could also compare this to salty water. The more you drink salty water, the more you're thirsty, though you are drinking, but not the right thing. The same way our mind works. If we let some emotions to manifest again and again, they will come again and again. So they will come more easily the next time, because you just pave the way for them to arise again and disturb the mind. So with that same type of concern, we should immediately apply attention and antidote to thoughts arising in the mind and which would start to disturb the mind. The 4th verse says, whenever I see a being of wicked nature who is overwhelmed by heavy non-virtue and suffering, I shall hold him dear, as if I had discovered a precious treasure difficult to find. whenever I see a being of wicked nature who is overwhelmed by heavy non-virtue and suffering, I shall hold him dear, as if I had discovered a precious treasure difficult to find. This is quite far from the common attitude. Yes, common attitude is when we are facing somebody with very negative attitude, very heavy negative attitude, we tend to reject such kind of people and run away from this kind of people because we can see that they are acting in a wrong way, because they are creating suffering for themselves and the others, and so we tend to be disappointed or disgusted by this kind of people. But in the fact, when we are observing these people generating suffering for the others and creating suffering for themselves, it is compassion we should feel for. It is not disgust, it is not anger, which is not beneficial anyhow for anyone. You get angry against somebody who is angry, who do you benefit? Not the person, and definitely not yourself. So seeing somebody of negative nature requires from our side to generate bodhicitta, to generate loving kindness towards such people who are in ignorance, creating suffering for the others and creating suffering consequently for themselves. So I shall hold him dear, as if I have discovered a precious treasure difficult to find. When we are surrounded by friends who are patting our back, who are telling us how good we are, how nice we are, that we are doing good, that we are doing great, what does it help us, spiritually speaking? If not eventually to generate pride and to generate a type of superior attitude because everybody praises us. At the contrary, when somebody is acting in a very negative way towards us, if we can have the good attitude, if we can generate the proper attitude towards that situation, it is a source of great realization. It is a source of great good, and for our own spiritual path, and eventually for that person, because we will generate a lot of positive energy, a lot of positive prayer for that person. Yes? So clearly we have the tendency to react in an opposite way that of this kind of text, of Dharma, of compassionate attitude, because of the way we are raised, because of the way we are taught, and we can easily understand that those who have never heard anything about Dharma, about compassion, when they are in front of difficult situation or when they are impatient, well, they just act out of ignorance. And acting out of ignorance can lead to a lot of negativity. We should not do like that. We should not feel pride out of it neither, as we saw earlier. Yet, in front of a difficult person, we need to generate compassion. We need to generate bodhicitta. We should see that person as a special, because it helps us to see how we have been acting in the past, how we are not acting anymore now, and we generate thoughts and prayer so that person can change and dispel ignorance, the ignorance which obviously overwhelmed that person. The next line, which is the fifth line, says, when out of jealousy others treat me badly with abuse, insults, and the like, I shall practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to others. When out of jealousy others treat me badly with abuse, insult, and the like, I shall practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to others. This is even, let's say, one step further in the inner work, because this is not the tendency that we have. If somebody is mistreating us and trying to win over a situation, we have spontaneously the wish to fight back, to punch back eventually, or to engage all kind of situation to win, to do not let the others to be the winner. Here, of course, we have to dissociate different situations. When we are the only one which is involved in the situation, then it is easier to give the victory to others. Because what we have to work on is our own ego. To accept defeat is not easy for our ego. If we are the sole target of someone and losing a battle, or losing a fight, or losing an argument, we are the only loser in it. Well, this is just our ego. We can let it go. We can work at let it go. Now, when it is about a situation that we are trying to protect others, we are trying to defend others, and losing that battle, either court or argument or whatever, would have negative consequences for whom we are protecting, for those we are protecting, then of course it's a little bit different. We can still practice, we can still generate bodhicitta and so on, but since we are responsible for the welfare of the others, our attitude should be different. So when we are talking about this sentence in the text, it refers to a situation which involves us, which requires that we are working on ourselves. Yes, and this, I mean, what I'm saying is confirmed also by the Bodhisattva vows. So within the Bodhisattva vows, it is also said that we need to give up argument and so on, but not when it is the cases that we are protecting others, because it does not involve just ourselves and our own inner work, but it involves also eventually the well-being of the others. So we should differentiate a little bit these two different situations. So as a bodhisattva and upholding our bodhisattva vows, we do not engage into negative actions of fighting others, except if it is while we are protecting others from being harmed, from being abused, or in a situation which will develop as dangerous, or which will become dangerous for the others. So in any case, our prime concern is without any doubt the welfare, the well-being of the others. In any case, what we need to always observe what we need to always pay attention at is our motivation. Why am I acting in this or that way? Why am I upholding this argument? Will going forward into this argument or into this fight improve anything? Bring happiness for the others? Bring happiness at all? If not, then I put my ego in my pocket and I stop. And I remain eventually silent, or I stop to argue, or I stop to fight in any way. Yes. Motivation should be always what primes. And we need to be honest with this. This is not very easy all the time to be honest with oneself. But with the experience on meditation, meditating on one's own mind, we start to progressively see better within ourselves. And we start to see better when disturbed emotions are involved or not. Or if it is bodhicitta, or if it is loving kindness, generosity that we are really practicing, not something to cover our own disturbances. So in any case, in every situation, we observe the mind first before to jump on arguing or fighting. Next verse is, when someone I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes give me a terrible harm, I shall practice regarding him or her as my holy guru. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall practice regarding him or her as my holy guru. As we have always observed, that we can always observe, we are reacting more when it is somebody close to us who insult us or who does something harmful. Yes, if somebody we don't know pass by and insult us or say something bad about us, we could easily set aside and say, okay, well, it doesn't matter. If it is somebody from our family, close relative, who says the same thing, then we react much more emotionally. So, as I said before, when we are just surrounded by people acting in a very good way towards us, it does not challenge our patience. It does not challenge our generosity and kind attitudes. When it is somebody close to us who we trusted, who we believed, and who does something harmful for us, we would tend to be extremely disappointed, extremely hurt, feeling this suffering much more strongly than somebody else. So in this way, we can say that such person is a holy guru in the not in the sense that we will follow the teachings that that person will tell us, not in the sense that we will say, thank you, hurt me more. We're not masochist, neither, but in the sense that in front of a hard situation, we have a unique opportunity to observe our mind. We have a unique opportunity to see how our mind will work, how our mind will react, and we can observe this. And this is very precious for our practice. Because on the spot when we observe, and later on when we will analyze what did happen, how it did happen, how I reacted to this, that will be a great lesson. I will learn from that. I will learn in the sense that I can tell myself, okay, I think I reacted in a rather good way. I need to keep up. I need to deepen my compassion. Or I can tell myself, well, I freaked out. I lost my mind, or I got very angry. I completely lost it. And it means I need to work further, more, deeper, with more consistency in order to change my mind, because I could see that even though I thought I meditated already quite a lot and I received a lot of teachings and I know this and I know that, at that moment when I was the target of that person or of that situation, everything disappeared. All the good words and Om Mani Padme Hum and everything, this was gone. What I thought about is to fight back, is to punch back, is to answer in a negative way. So in that way, we look that person as a guru, as somebody who will teach us something. Not necessarily that that person wanted to teach us something, but we will appreciate the situation in this way. So we will not lose our mind and get mad at that person. Instead, we calm down, stay quiet, keep bodhicitta as the main source of inspiration, and practice our best in the best way. So this is meant in this way. Actually, we could say that this sentence, this sixth verse of the Lojong, contains the whole chapter of patience, about patience in the Bodhisattva Karyavatara. So it's a very powerful sentence if we understand it well and if we practice it well. 7th verse says, in short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. Secretly, I shall practice taking all their harmful actions and suffering upon myself. So in short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. Secretly, I shall practice taking all their harmful actions and suffering upon myself. As you can see, we are progressing into the text by challenging a little bit further, a little bit more, my attitudes, my general attitudes. Yes. How do I react in front of this? How do I react in front of that? All this is challenged. Usually I would be a little bit more self-cherishing. Here it says, look just at the others. Pay attention to the others. Consider all the others are as teachers, even when they are bad, especially when they are wrong, especially when they harm you, because you can learn something. Because you can, through what you will learn, improve yourself. The core of the practice is what? I'm practicing for what? I'm practicing for gaining happiness? Well, conventionally, eventually. But from the Bodhisattva attitude, from the Mahayana path point of view, no. What I am doing, and the reason for which I'm doing all what I'm doing, is to offer all my merits for all the other sentient beings. So when it says, of course, my mothers, it refers to all sentient beings, because through the law of causality and since beginningless time that we are existing, it is said we all have been for each other's mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and so on. So remembering all my mothers, all my sentient beings, all the sentient beings, I generate the wish to reach enlightenment. And on the way to enlightenment, I dedicate all the merits I accumulate for them. Because my wish is not to reach enlightenment just for myself. My wish is to reach enlightenment for them, for their happiness. Yes, this is always something we need to keep in mind. So, secretly, I shall practice taking all their harmful actions. Though the Lojong can appear as very simple practice, it's a very deep practice. It's a very profound practice, as you can see, as you can feel. And it is not something even that we need to express to the others. Like you are in front of somebody who harms you or try to fight with you and so on, and you would say, I stay peaceful because I do practice the Lojong, I'm a good practitioner, and you would not manage to piss me off. So we do not do that. We do not expose our practice in general. We keep them for ourselves inside. The main point is not to make the other to practice who is fighting us right now, is to improve my compassion towards all sentient beings, including that being. So the Lojong, like many other practices, are secret practices, are not something that we need to expose widely. Let's see. Yes, we can see through the text, through the entire text actually, that it tries to teach us to act and react in a completely different way than what we are used to. We have completely different habits regarding how to react towards the others. Here, we need to work on selfishness, on all the different aspects of our ego and how it manifests. So to, in return, practice bodhicitta. So to, in return, take all sentient beings in consideration. That is very important in order to transform the mind. And this is what the text is about. Yes, it's the verses of the mind transformation. However I tend to react usually, here I transform it. And I will act and react in a different way. Yes. Not for the sake of boosting my ego, not for the sake of pretending to be who I am not, but really in order to bring a lot of good and a lot of benefit for all sentient beings, with humility and with bodhicitta. And the 8th verse. The 8th verse says, trying to find the 8th verse, yes, here it is. With all these practices undefiled by the stain of the superstition of the 8 worldly dharma, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. With all these practices undefiled by the stain of the superstition of the 8 worldly dharma, by perceiving all dhammas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. So here you have somehow the part which helps us also to meditate not only on bodhicitta, but also on the true nature of phenomena. If we do not see the reality as it is, we are contaminated by the eight-worldly dharma, seeking for fame, seeking for good, seeking for not being criticized, and so on. So we are generating a lot of fears and a lot of disturbed emotion to look important, to look good, and when we do, not to lose that position, and so on. These kind of views, of course, are of a great disturbances. And if we have these kind of views, even within our Dharma practices, we will not reach a lot of benefits. We will not accumulate much merits, because the reason for which we are engaged into the practice is not the right one. So it is important to meditate regularly on the true nature of phenomena, on the causality, along with meditation on bodhicitta. These two aspects we know are very important. At the same time, the real nature of phenomena and the right motivation. So we are working, we are practicing in order to do what? In order to help all sentient beings to get free from suffering. How we do that? By generating bodhicitta, by pacifying the mind, pacifying the disturbed thoughts, the disturbed emotions, which arise when that mind is untamed, when that mind has not understood the meaning of bodhicitta, when that mind has not understood how to release the projections and the fears arising from this confrontation with the reality which we have not correctly understood. So taking what we perceive as permanent, as eternal, grasping them and so on, are holding us within the samsara, are holding us deeply into the illusion. So these 8 verses encourage us to meditate on the true existence, on the true nature of reality. However a certain amount of situation might look like, they are illusory. Why to fall into the trap of the 8 worldly dharma when I understand that all phenomena are illusory? Through the understanding of the illusion of all phenomena, I progressively free myself from the 8 worldly dharma and from all disturbances of the samsara. And having realized, so having really actualized the wisdom of emptiness, will free me from all form of suffering. And being free from all form of suffering will enable me to help the others even better to find their own way out of suffering. Yes? So the text, actually the Lojong, is as much about developing emptiness as developing bodhicitta through all the different circumstances that I can be confronted with, and working on my mind as much as I can. And we can every day. Every day we are confronted with situations that we can use to practice. This is something I know that I emphasize a lot again and again, but because we are forgetting about it. When we are caught in the daily life situations, we are forgetting to apply the correct Dharma. We are forgetting to remember how to practice, how to pacify the mind, how to practice humility, how to remember about humility. So regularly, it is important to read these verses, to listen this kind of teaching again and again, to remind ourselves about the three pillars of the path. The three pillars of the path being renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, contained in these 8 verses, of course. So this is the Lojong teaching needs, like the Langri, like the Heart Sutra, and many other texts, need to be read again and again and again to remember them, simply. It's not that we forget. If somebody in the daily life will tell you, oh, you know about Lojong? You can say, ah, yes, it's a text which says that I should hold the others as dear, and so on. But we might not remember the details, and not remembering the details, we don't necessarily feel the importance of that text. And not feeling the importance of that text, we might not practice it enough. We might not put it into practice enough. And because we do not put it into practice, well, we don't actualize it, it does not sink into our mind. Yes. When we talk about generating bodhicitta, we talk about practicing again and again and again. Like when we talk about emptiness or such. This is not just text, or this is not just teaching we hear once and we store in one part of our head. No, these are teachings we should keep alive and running all the time in our head, somewhere ready. Every time we are in front of the reality, we confront our understanding of that reality. I see things. Why? Why do I see things? Why do I see phenomena? What do I see? I see a lamp, I see a wall. Where does it come from? Why do I see it? Why do I see things the way I see them? And then sentient beings. They are sentient beings. How should I consider them? How should I treat them? How I place myself in front of them? How do I consider myself in front of them? We should not forget. And this is the goal of the Lojong. This is the goal of the Bodhisattva Karyavatara and the Heart Sutra and so on. These are not a dead language. Yes. Lojong and all these teachings are not just a text which was taught a certain amount of centuries ago. These are texts extremely alive, useful in everyday life, now as much as it was 5, 10 centuries ago, and definitely as much as it will be in the centuries to come, because they are dealing with our mind. They are dealing with how we are considering and the reality we are confronted with, and the others. So I can only but encourage you to read such texts again and again in order to remember them, to remember their meaning and how they should be applied all the times.